Well, with the recent border mess, we've seen a massive surge for Donald Trump in pretty much all of the polls, especially the hypothetical general election polls against Joe Biden. Even the popular vote right now is getting out of control. You can see Trump in terms of overall average plus 4.5. That is just popular vote, and based off of this large influx of pro Trump polls, I'm going to be making a absolute best case scenario for Donald Trump in the 2024 election. Of course, this is all hypothetical. Things are going to change significantly, but you can see, I had wondered, would Biden improve in terms of a lot of these polls with the gas prices going down? Trump is actually up even more by about 4 points. Again, it's very early. Certainly, there's a lot of stuff to be decided in terms of the election year with all of the Trump cases and charges and things like that. But right now, it seems like a lot of people, a lot of independent people, and that's what matters. Independent people want Donald Trump back over Biden with all the rhetoric surrounding Biden, the argument that all Trump does is start wars. Well, there were zero major wars during Trump's administration, and we've got a bunch of crap going on now with Biden. How much do you want to blame that on Biden? Either way, people are just pissed off right now, and Donald Trump has taken a commanding lead. So we're just going to go state by state. This is very early polling. Some of these polls were conducted last year, but I'm just trying to give a little bit of context when it comes to the states that Trump could potentially win. So Arizona, you can see right now, these polls were from last year, December of last year, although I do think they would still be very positive in terms of Trump with the border problem. You can see Trump +6, +10. There's also some Nikki Haley versus Biden polls. Nikki Haley, very small chance of being the nominee. Trump would have to, be forced out by some legal proceeding for him not to be the nominee in terms of the Republicans. And you can see Trump leading in pretty much every poll in Arizona against Biden. That'll be a big swing state out west. Colorado, this is kind of funny. You can see, I'm not saying Donald Trump is going to win Colorado, but you can make a case if Biden continues with this horrible approval rating, he could be possibly competitive in Colorado with Biden up 4-3. There's a poll with him up 9. Interesting there. Florida, certainly I would expect Trump to win Florida with all of the, Republicans moving to Florida. This swing in terms of the registered conservatives versus Democrats in that state, with DeSantis carrying the state in 2022 by 20 points. I think Republicans are taking that no matter what. Georgia, a strong case can be made that Trump should be able to take back Georgia. The recent poll from January, a few weeks ago, Trump +8 in that one. This is Michigan. So Michigan, I do think, is the most liberal Rust Belt state. The most recent poll we have, Biden +4, but Nikki Haley +10 over Biden. That's funny, but certainly, obviously, Michigan's going to come down to a very small number. You would expect it to be like 3 points or less. That's a state that's very winnable for both sides. Minnesota's interesting. Minnesota, Biden +3, +2 there. Minnesota's kind of similar to Virginia. Those could be surprise states that Trump could be competitive in. New York, even in a best case scenario, there's a few recent polls that have come out that they conduct every few weeks, or I guess that's the same poll, Biden +9. There's a few polls that have Biden +9, Biden +10. Maybe Trump can bring it to single digits in New York. That would be surreal if that actually happened. Ohio, I would expect Trump to win Ohio easily. You can see recent polling there. This is Pennsylvania. That's going to be another Rust Belt state that's going to be very close. The Republican can very easily win that. And then Wisconsin, similar to the other Rust Belt states, Trump up by a few points in terms of that. So getting to the actual map, this right now is a best case scenario for Donald Trump. And we're just going to begin. Normally, I always begin on the West Coast. So Washington, I would say, could you make an argument that, once you get out of Seattle, maybe Trump could do something. I just don't see any of these states, honestly. This is best case, but it's realistic. This is actually a realistic prediction. All of those are going to Biden. I think New Mexico goes to Biden as well. But when it comes to Trump, this is when you start giving him, certainly, Nevada is obviously a swing state. But when you're talking about best case scenario, everything that's going on with the polls right now, Biden record unlikability, even worse than Trump, even though Trump had 90% of the media against him, Trump should be able to take Nevada. Right now, as I see it, he would take Nevada. But again, we're a while away from the election. Utah certainly going to Trump. Wyoming, Colorado, in a best case scenario, I just can't do it. I think I will do color codes on these. So I would do like something like that if I were to color code these. And then for Trump, I would do that like a light red just because it's a swing state. Arizona, I think Trump takes best case or whatever. Just regular. I think Trump's going to win Arizona. So obviously best case there. This thing's like, it zooms in. I'd rather it not do that. But Alaska goes to Trump. Biden taking Hawaii. There's no doubt about that. Moving on, North and South Dakota. I'm going to give Trump everything in Nebraska. So he did lose one of these districts which lost him a few electoral votes, but he only lost it by 7 points. So I'm going to give, in a best case scenario, you could certainly think that Trump could take all of those little districts or whatever they're called there. Minnesota, definitely in a best case scenario, you got to go Trump. It would be by about 1 or 2 points, but it is possible. Iowa, Trump, pretty much guaranteed. Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio. You can lighten up Ohio a little bit. You can lighten up Florida as well, but I don't see Trump losing either of those states, best case or just normal. West Virginia. Virginia's interesting. I'm going to come back to some of these. In a best case scenario, obviously Trump sweeps the Rust Belt, right? They're all going to be close margins, but I would actually depict Ohio a little bit darker. I think it's darker red than the other three. Well, that's just what the polls say. Illinois, I have to give to Biden. I don't think there's any way Trump is winning Illinois, obviously. Georgia, in a Trump best case scenario, he's winning Georgia. South Carolina goes to Trump. Actually, I'm going to make that dark red. There's no way Trump loses South Carolina. North Carolina is interesting. Trump won North Carolina in both 2016 and 2020. It was close both years, kind of like Florida. I don't think that necessarily it's going to be a blowout like Florida could be in 2024, but I do think Trump will win it slightly. Virginia, I think Trump has a chance to win Virginia. It's small, but it is there. And if you're going best case scenario at this point, I would give Trump Virginia. A best case scenario, can he win New York? It just doesn't seem likely. Absolute best case, maybe Biden completely loses it. I guess maybe he could win it. And then with all these little dimple states, there's just no way Trump wins any of these states. It's really not possible. Even Vermont, New Hampshire, certainly in a best case, he would take slightly. And then Maine, I would give Trump everything in Maine. That would be a best case, but it would be a kind of a lighter map there. So this is what it would be. This is like a Trump best case scenario, in my opinion. I guess you could make the argument if he takes New York, then he also has a chance in Oregon and Washington. But that's just completely outrageous. No, but realistically, like not trolling, I would say that probably actually is like the best case scenario. Even giving Biden one of these districts or whatever, some of those electoral votes, this would be like the best case scenario because he wins every single swing state. I'd actually give him Arizona like darker, honestly, something like that. And he wins all the Rust Belt. He wins back Georgia. He obviously wins Florida. The big ones here, these would be the crippling ones for, this whole election would be a mess for the Democrats, but the cripplers would be Minnesota and Virginia. Now, again, Minnesota, very limited polling. Biden's up by like 4 or 5. It just depends what the trend, in terms of these legal proceedings with Trump. They've done polls and it's like, oh, hypothetically, if Trump gets charged with something, will you still vote for him? And it goes way down. That's what the Democrats are hoping. We see what's going on right now. Immigration is such a losing issue for the left at this point. Their only argument, now they're saying, oh, Trump and the Republicans, they don't want to solve the immigration issue, so they're dragging it out. Remember, Donald Trump's the guy that wanted to build a wall to solve it back in 2016. Now, I think the wall was a good idea. The problem with the wall, because of the way the Mexico-U.S. border works, and I don't want to get into this too much, but you cannot have a continuous border wall, which is what I would want. What I would say is, listen, whatever it costs, $15, $20 billion, whatever, build a continuous massive wall in between. I don't care if you have to move it back a little bit or whatever, make it continuous. And also the wall is kind of like, I don't know, the way they built it is kind of cheap, but either way, guys, the situation for Joe Biden, it's not looking too good. Then again, we'll see what happens in terms of all of these different cases, the racketeering case in Georgia, the January 6th case, and you also do have the documents. Those really aren't going to affect anything, at least when they pull people, they really don't affect anything. Either way, this is a Trump best case. I really think like 342 is a hardline best case for Trump. I mean, you could say, well, New York, it's competitive, Washington, Colorado, like demographics don't change that drastically that soon. It would take like Biden. I mean, it's like a Ronald Reagan victory. Biden would have to really mess up. I mean, it's possible if the margin's only 5 or 6 and he really screws up or the Democrats do something horribly bad, theoretically Trump could win Colorado as well. But realistically, right now, based on polls, I would say this would be best case scenario. Either way, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on X. Link to that's always in the description.